Hey guys, just a reminder, this is not official medical advice. For such, please seek an appointment with a licensed medical provider.
Hi, this is Dr. Tom Rogers coming to you with the Common Sense MD. I've got a special program today because I have a special guest, Lucas Schmidt. He's our nutritionist and our smart guy, I call him. He's also a trainer and an actor and a singer. He's an incredible, I call you the Renaissance man.
Oh, thank you.
It's been so fun to work with you the past couple of years here at Performance Medicine. It's just an amazing addition to our program.
Well, thank you.
You know, because we're trying to get the world leaner
Right.
and more fit. And, of course, food has everything to do with that.
Right.
A couple of weeks ago, if you follow my podcast, I did one on processed foods because, you know, really, like I said, any diet works, any diet fails. In the long run, it's what you can eat to stay healthy and keep weight off and stay feeling energetic. And, you know, in going through, of course, I've prescribed every kind of diet you have too, whether it be keto, carnivore, Mediterranean, vegan, vegetarian. They all work. But one thing I've really almost kind of ignored through the years is really just processed foods.
Oh, yeah.
I'm starting to think that processed foods are really the culprit with our diet.
Yeah, I think a big part of it, yeah.
Maybe more than anything. So what I'm going to do is announce a challenge. It's going to be the Performance Medicine January Challenge when you eat no processed foods.
Woo.
I'm going to do it myself. You're going to do it, Luke?
Sure,
you
I'll do it.
You don't eat them anyway, but
I have during these various Christmas parties.
that's why we're going to start it after Christmas.
That's a good idea. That's kind. It's kind of you to not, spoil Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. You can't have that chocolate. Get that out of your mouth. No.
But you can see the actor in him. You need to come watch him at the Jonesboro Playhouse. He's amazing. But in any event, Lucas is going to run this because he's the expert with nutrition and cooking and all this stuff. So people ask, what is a processed food? What's an ultra-processed food? Please go back and review my podcast from a couple weeks ago. But you have a program that is going to guide our patients and me with this processed or ultra-processed food withdrawal. Tell me what your ideas are about this.
Well, I guess if somebody sees me in a consultation, for example, for this, it would be quickly, and you elaborate in the other podcast, but reminding them the difference in processed and ultra processed. Technically processed, if you chop something up, I'm processing this food, and that's fine. We're not gonna ask you to just go out to trees and pick apples, and that's all you get, right? That's not. Technically, that's, I guess, not, but you're picking the apple, isn't that proper? Picking it up off the ground. That's the only process involved. Ultra processed is really the ones that you're after, which is things like crackers, cookies, cakes. We talked before we started. A gas station muffin.
Things that come in a wrapper.
Yeah, they're often in the plastic wrap and things like that. Now, there's always exceptions. There's some items that are probably come in a plastic wrap that are just fine. But what I like to do is come up with the most obvious examples, and then you sort of tier it backwards or forwards, depending on which way you like to think. So your best items are your single ingredient items, excluding, the plastic bag, like at produce aisle. You got to get the little plastic bag and put all your oranges in it so you can weigh them, etc. Single ingredient items: apple, orange, chicken, steak. Okay, those are single ingredient generally. Those are your best ones. And then you kind of have a secondary category of they are processed. So the example I gave you was olives. Those are good food. Olives are fine. Very low carb. You're not going to spike your blood sugar. But they do go through a chemical process. You can't just eat olives fresh off the tree. I guess you could try, but it wouldn't be enjoyable. They have to be soaked in brine, which is salt water. I think sometimes vinegar, depends on what they're doing. But they've got to soak for a while, and they keep them in a glass jar usually. So that's a processed food, but it's an okay processed food. It's a good processed food. So there are sort of exceptions. But really, there would be there's going to be a category list. There's like the gold standard foods and drinks. Drinks are included in this, and then your maybe category to help weed out confusion. Well, is this okay? It's technically soaked in salt water, or it's been dry. It's been dried. It's been salt cured. Things like that.
Yeah.
There are some chemical processes that are not necessarily bad for you, like salt curing meat. You can dehydrate meat and salt cure it without nitrites and nitrates, and it's not terrible. And then you have your obvious, you're bad. So what I did was, I also want to teach people how to read a nutrient label, a nutrition label, I should say. So I'm not gonna spend too much time in this, but I'm gonna. If you see words like, I have a list here so I don't miss some of these culprits. Ultra processed foods usually contain one or more of the following ingredients. You don't have to remember this. There'll be a list. There'll be a list that, in the plan, you'll get a list of these things. But there's a bunch of preservatives and flavor enhancers and dyes and things like that that are not great for you. So if you can't pronounce the name of more than one of the ingredients on the label, or any of them, frankly, it's probably not great to have. I'll probably mispronounce some of these. They're chemistry names. They're crazy. You've got potassium bromate. That one's not bad. It's not good for you, but it's not bad to say. It's a preservative. It's not great. Propylparaben, which is a preservative. It's often found in pastries. So if you go to Weigel's down the road, they've got a lot of good food in there. They also have a lot of packaged food, and they'll have Danishes in a plastic wrap. It's probably going to have that preservative in it. Potentially harmful to your reproductive health, apparently. So
plastics. Yeah,
plastics. You got BHA or BHT, which are both preservatives used in cereals and meats. Titanium dioxide. It's a coloring agent found in candy. You got artificial dyes. There's about 7 of them, I believe 7. Red 3, Red 40. These are the famous ones right now.
The 7's bad.
Yeah. Aspartame, it's been around a while. Artificial sweetener. Apparently it can affect your hormones, and it makes weight control difficult, even though it's a sugar-free sweetener. Excuse me. ADA, it's a bleaching agent and a dough conditioner. So this is one you're going to find in ultra-processed foods like crackers and breads, shelf-stable bread. Bread, unless it's bought at the bakery and has what I look for when I buy bread, when I do eat bread. Ideally, sourdough is probably the better. It's fermented longer, breaks down a lot of the harmful stuff. And salt, yeast, water, culture. That should be the only ingredients. It shouldn't be enriched. It shouldn't be bleached. None of that. Because if you look at any wheat product right now, almost any wheat product, it says enriched bleached flour, and then there's a parentheses, and it lists all the vitamins they put in that enrichment.
It's kind of BS, isn't it?
It's in there, I suppose, but you're probably not going to absorb most of that, and it's not great. Just get you just want wheat, wheat, salt, yeast. That's pretty much it.
I had the nicest patient bring me her own baked loaf of sourdough bread. It was so good.
Ooh, what a nice gift.
I did not feel guilty about eating it. It was fantastic.
Aldi is the only one so far. I mean, other grocery stores carry it sometimes, but the bakery aisle is it gets picked over very quickly. Aldi has, usually in stock, 2 kinds of sourdough bread that don't have enriched or bleached flour, and only the 3 or 4 ingredients. And they usually always carry it. It's great. Propyl gallate. It's a preservative in meat, vegetable oil, and chewing gum. I use it in all of those. Sodium benzoate. I see this one all the time. Some of these are up for debate, I will say. I don't want to be a doom and gloom, okay? I just like to present that there's some research to indicate they're bad for you. And most of these chemicals, there's not research to demonstrate that they're good for you or nutritionally beneficial in any way. The company might say, well, it's not killed anybody. There's no proof it kills anybody directly. I'm like, great, but demonstrate that this is nutritionally useful. Because if I'm eating something, if it's not useful, except at Christmas or Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's right.
That's useful for your soul. It's probably not the best thing to be eating. Methylene chloride, it's another, it's a solvent. So methylene chloride, I didn't realize they used solvents like this, but it's used to decaffeinate tea and coffee. Now, that isn't to say that there doesn't exist organic decaffeinated coffee or tea. I'm sure there's maybe another process they can use. But there's also ethyl dichloride. It's another solvent they use in the same process. So sodium nitrite, that's a common one. You'll see that in a lot of jerky, beef jerky, turkey jerky, things like that. Preserved meats, cured meats. It's best if you're going to get a cured meat to get, it'll say uncured. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And they've just probably salt dried it or something like that. Or they use a celery extract, which is fine.
Yeah.
So cane sugar. So this is not in there's a group of chemicals called the Dirty Dozen. I've already gone through them. These are ones I added. Cane sugar itself it's not poisonous, right? But if you're eating something and they're adding just plain good old-fashioned sugar, again, not as bad as maybe aspartame, but it's not the best thing to be eating. It's just sugar. You're spiking your blood sugar. Which too much of that contributes to metabolic disease. Unless you just hopped off a treadmill for 4 hours, I guess you could probably put some sugar in your mouth a little bit.
Yeah, I do the treadmill 4 hours before I eat breakfast.
Yeah,
which I don't even eat breakfast anymore.
Okay.
So don't you do treadmill 4 hours when you get up?
Sure, yeah.
4 hours worth?
Good grief. Training for a marathon every day. Corn syrup is another common. It's just another word. It's a liquid sugar. Fructose. It's very quickly absorbed into the bloodstream.
Terrible.
Fructose is fast. High fructose corn syrup is another.
The demon of all demons with nutrition.
Yeah,
in my opinion,
it increases your risk mainly for metabolic disease. And then you got partially hydrogenated oil, aka trans fats. Now, these were technically banned in 2018 in mass use, but they are still used. The first food, I put it in quotes, food that pops into my head when I think of partially hydrogenated is powdered coffee creamer.
Yeah.
So that it's still on the ingredient list today. Now there are rules. When they banned it in 2018, they didn't kill it outright. The rule is if per serving there's less than a gram, they can put 0 trans fats.
Yeah, right.
But serving sizes
it could be in there.
Yeah, but serving sizes for coffee creamer are tiny.
Yeah.
So there's a loophole there.
Yeah.
It's not good for you. If the FDA banned it food-wise, even if it's even on their radar, it's probably been proven to be terrible. They're kind of slow to ban certain.
They are,
anyway.
Especially in our country. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that changes very soon.
The regulations are a little odd. So.
You think they're bought out by the food industry? That's a whole other topic. We won't get into that. But I think that'll change.
Don't get me going.
In the coming maybe year or so, that may change tremendously.
I don't like to copy Europe on everything, but Italy, for example, is a place where if I get pasta, for example, I try to buy. You can buy pasta.
You fly over there. You jet over there to get your
jet
pasta?
over there. No, you can get it here in any grocery stores. It'll say product of Italy. There's this little stamp mark on it. I try to get pasta that's if I'm going to eat wheat pasta from them because they've banned glyphosate in their wheat. You can't treat. It's illegal to treat their wheat and their produce with certain pesticides and things like that aren't great for us. Corn syrup solids. You ever seen that on an ingredient label? It's not as common.
I've seen that.
It's dehydrated corn syrup.
That's got to be great for you, doesn't it?
It's great. No, it raises the blood sugar really quickly, actually, so it's not good for you at all. This isn't okay. The last thing I have on this list. I don't know that it should be included in this list of things to always avoid, but I just want to mention it. There's a bit of a debate about it. It's been shoved in our faces as a health food. Canola oil.
Oh, I've heard bad things about it.
It's a seed oil. It's the process of getting it to the oil form is ultra process.
Yeah.
Ultra process. They used to use canola oil as a machine factory lubricant, which you can use oils as lubricants. You could use olive oil, I suppose. It just doesn't last as long, But all that to say is it's pushed as a good source of omega-3. Did you know this?
I didn't know they were pushing it as an omega-3.
Because it contains ALA, alpha-linoleic acid. It's sort of a plant equivalent to omega-3, like from fish or meats, things like that. ALA has a terrible absorption rate. Terrible. It also has a terrible conversion rate. You have an absorption rate of 30% and a conversion rate of 1 to 8% to EPA DHA, which is what you're getting from omega-3s when you're after them. So it's way oversold. And people are drizzling things in canola oil, super high calorie, thinking, I'm going to get my omega-3. No, you're not.
That's not the way to get it.
You're not getting omega-3. It's also really high in omega-6.
Yeah.
So
the inflammatory omegas.
Right. So it nullifies. They compete with each other for absorption. So I just want to give a caution. Canola oil on the bottle in the grocery store says heart healthy, and it possibly could be, but that is a oversold, overly confident deliver. They're too confident in that delivery.
I do not believe it's healthy.
So, and it degrades actually at a very low temperature. It oxidizes very quickly. Most plant oils, seed oils, oxidize very quickly.
So their smoke point's low. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, canola oil. Well, there's a chemical. I wish the name escapes me off the top of my head. That comes particularly in plant seed oils, polyunsaturated fats, not monos,
PUFAs.
but PUFAs, that comes into play very quickly when they oxidize.
PUFA's usually bad.
Canola oil's oxidation point's like 25 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
Which is not very hot.
No, it's not hot at all.
So, and when you see them, they're mostly stored in these big plastic jugs.
Yeah.
With no light filtration. And like a good bottle of olive oil will be in a dark green glass bottle. And it'll say store in a dark, cool place.
You can even get adulterated olive oils. You got to be careful where you get it. But that's interesting because I think seed oils, all of them are terrible for your high fructose corn syrup, soy products, and that's the biggest mass-produced plant in this
Sometimes
country.
They're nicknamed endocrine disruptors, things like that. Yeah.
And then, but seed oils.
Yeah.
I do not like seed oils. They're high on the list of bad foods. Yeah. But anything else on that list?
So I've got to sort of condense. If you want to boil it down, which we'll do when the plan comes out in January, is sort of a summary. It's just a best category. Single ingredient items: apple, beef, chicken, blueberry, strawberry. One word things. I can just eat it. And then you've got acceptable ingredients I made a category, acceptable ingredients to look for if there is a packaged item. So these are ingredients that if you see them, don't be as alarmed or concerned. Salt, water, olive oil, celery seed extract, spices, herbs, vinegar, cream, cheese, Rennet, which is it's what they use. It's Rennet is an enzyme, I believe, or it's the wax for cheese when you make cheese. It's a French Rennet. Lactobacillus. So that's one that you might be like, that sounds like a terrible chemical. I'm not going to have that. Lactobacillus is a bacterial strain that's used it's used to ferment things. So you'll see lactobacillus is the first word, and then depending on what you're getting, there'll be another word like Ruerti. There's a bunch of lactobacillus.
The first thing you see on an ingredient list usually has the most.
It's the most.
And then the last thing's the least, right?
I believe so. It's ordered because when you get on the ultra processed foods, you'll see at the end like 2% or less of, and then there's like 20 ingredients. Live active culture is fine. Yeast, nutritional yeast, cocoa, vanilla bean, coconut oil, dried coconut, nut seeds, dried fruits, as long as they're not nitrite, like some dried fruits are. Lemon, lime, citrus essence, or lactase. So those are just ingredients. I'm sure there's other ones. I'll come up with a more thorough list. My plan is to come up with a really thorough. If you want to be like brutal about it, But really, the easiest thing to do is try to make your own food, and try to get things that aren't wrapped in plastic,
And buy from the fresh market or Aldi's or Whole
Aldi's
Foods.
Aldi's, people think of Aldi as a cheap store, meaning they're going to sell like bad, unhealthy. But no, they carry
Yeah,
really good quality food. They
do.
do have some junk food in there. Don't get me wrong.
If you could get it straight from your farmer, which we're going to do a podcast on very soon. Believe me, I got a little surprise for you.
Oh,
but yeah, soon about. I'm going to interview a farmer that makes this stuff that I like. But in any event, this is going to be a very exciting challenge for January. I'm certainly going to do it. My plan really, and Lucas is in charge of this, so we're going to come out with a list, and you can come in if you want to and visit with Lucas. He's here on Wednesdays. We may do some group visits, or you may just want to follow it on your own through our blogs and Lucas's blogs when he does them weekly. But my idea ideally, here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to put a CGM on, continuous glucose monitor, on the back of your arm. You don't need to be a diabetic to get a lot of information from these CGMs. I've done it several times. It's very helpful to let me know what pops my sugars up, because that's where the money is. The other thing I'd like you to do is come in here and get an in-body scan before you start this, and we're going to do it afterwards to see what percentage body fat, visceral fat, basic metabolic rate, water retention, muscle. It's one of the better things we do. Yeah. And Lucas is
quick
in charge.
And easy.
Yeah, it takes about 2 minutes. It's just
and
a great.
And it plays a little song for you while you're on the scale.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun to see where you're at. I call it the truth teller. Yeah. Because that thing does not lie.
Yeah. Just do it on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
I discovered if you eat, it tells you you're healthier than you are. Oddly enough. That's right. Because it counts the food as lean mass.
So come in fasting on it.
Yeah, ideally for an in-body.
Yeah, and then we'll do it in another month and see, or 2. I mean, you may want to prolong this thing, but we call it the challenge of January. So it's just cutting out ultra-processed foods. So stay tuned. We're going to have it all written out for you, and Lucas will see you here in the office. All our staff's on board. I think most of them are going to be doing it with us. So I look forward to the month and just see. Yeah. I think once you kind of detox from processed foods and all this junk you're probably eating, then you won't crave it so much. Yeah, you will not crave.
It does get a lot easier when because I avoid it usually most of the year. I mean, I try to be pretty strict, and eventually it just becomes instinct. You're just like, I'm good. I don't need it. I'm fine. Yeah. I don't miss it. You don't miss how you feel.
And you're a pretty healthy guy.
Well, most of the time. I try to be.
You're a healthy guy. Anyway, thank you, Lucas Schmidt, for coming in today and doing this. And we're going to get this thing rolling in January. Any questions, just call the office, and we'll see you guys next week.